worth repeating right now. It wasn't like they were sitting at number 12 and all these quarterbacks went in front of them and then they felt like, oh, let's go settle in on Bo Nix. Bo Nix was the guy that Sean Payton was after the whole time.
Denver Broncos fans have been on me for a while for how I handled the Russell Wilson situation because I felt like it was the greatest example of an inept front office. But Broncos fans recently have been very optimistic about their quarterback situation, and it's easy to see why. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing Bo Nix. He hasn't played a single regular season game yet, but based upon what we've seen so far, things look very promising. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! NFL season's finally here and PrizePicks is hooking us up fat with a brand new deal. New users that make a lineup of $5 get $50 guaranteed. All you have to do is go to the link in the description down below, download PrizePicks, create an account, and use my promo code Mikerophone to get $50 guaranteed when you make a lineup of $5 or more. I give away my picks each and every day on my Instagram account @TheFlightMike, and thank you PrizePicks for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I am currently sitting on the floor in my room in Madrid, so I apologize if it's really dark and you can't see my face, but I think that's also a blessing for you guys. Nothing like a little self-deprecating humor to start this video. The Denver Broncos have been in quarterback hell for almost a decade now, but the search for their franchise guy might finally be over. After dealing with the years of Drew Lock and a washed-up Russell Wilson under center, Broncos fans finally get to root for a quarterback who gives the team some real hope. Bo Nix is the quarterback of the future in Denver, and it's time we start putting some respect on his name. The 2024 quarterback class is absolutely loaded with talent. 6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks, and that has never happened before. Guys like Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels were the talk of the entire draft, and were basically guaranteed to be the top 2 picks. But there was a quarterback run that was not supposed to happen. Before the draft process, Bo Nix was projected to be a day 2, perhaps even a day 3 pick, with him going in the second round at the highest, and quite honestly, it didn't really make a lot of sense. Nix is coming off of one of the single greatest statistical seasons in college football history, and absolutely nobody was talking about it. He led the Oregon Ducks to a 12-2 record while throwing for 4,508 yards and an absolutely absurd touchdown to interception ratio of 45-3. Oh, and on top of his 45 touchdowns leading the nation, he also broke the NCAA single season record with a 77.4% completion percentage. Now, of course, numbers are just numbers and they don't really tell the whole story, especially in college football. Just take this clip from before he even transferred to Oregon as evidence of how good this guy can be. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why in the world wasn't this guy projected to be a first-round pick? Genuinely, the only logical explanation I can think of is that he's old. Nix played 5 full years of college football due to the COVID-19 eligibility waiver. He broke the record for the most college football games ever started with 61, and is entering his rookie season at 24 years old. But realistically, this not only makes him the most mature quarterback in this class, but also the most NFL ready. For comparison, the 3rd overall pick, Drake May, will be 22 years old entering his rookie year, will most likely sit behind Jacoby Brissett for a few weeks before being thrown to the wolves by the New England Patriots. And it wouldn't be all that surprising if his rookie year is a dud. And that's not me saying Drake May will be a bust or that he's bad. He has all the talent in the world, but he's not NFL ready just yet. Bo Nix is, and we saw that in his first preseason game. Going into the game, there was one thing on everyone's mind: which quarterback will win the starting job? Ever since Russell Wilson was released, the quarterback position has been completely up for grabs in Denver. Despite Nix being taken with a top 12 pick, Sean Payton was all over Nix in the draft process, but he made it very clear that he needed to earn the starting job over Jarrett Stidham and all-world quarterback Zach Wilson. If there's one thing that keeps preseason preseason games entertaining, it's a quarterback battle. Stidham would start the game at QB, but would have a pretty subpar performance before Nix would enter the game and absolutely steal the show.
Now, he didn't get to start. Jared Stidham got to start, but when Bo Nix got in, boy, he looked efficient.
Nix came into the game and immediately made being an NFL QB look easy. Just look at this throw that gave him his first ever completion as a pro. This throw should not be able to be made by a rookie, and he made it look effortless. This is a veteran play. The overhead view of this play just shows how composed Nix already is. He goes through all of his reads, stays in the pocket as long as possible, and finally escapes once it collapses to throw an absolute dime on the run. This is on 3rd and long, by the way. Meanwhile, Justin Fields is taking sacks like this on 3rd down. One throw in and he already looks better than some vets. Nix would go on to arguably have the best performance any of the 6 rookie quarterbacks have had this week, throwing for 125 yards and this beautiful touchdown that shows how quick his release is. But this is all on a 71.4% completion percentage. He also showed off his mobility, giving us a glimpse of the dual threat ability he showed in college. Bo Nix rushed for 38 touchdowns in his 61 games at both Auburn and Oregon, so don't be surprised if he rushes for double-digit touchdowns at any point during his pro career. Nix was in for 5 drives against Indianapolis and led Denver to points on 4 of them, which should have included another touchdown if we're being honest, because this throw is insane. He also completely dominated the Packers a week later in just 2 drives, where he would complete 8 of 9 for 80 yards and a touchdown. This offense looks really good when Nix is in. He already has undeniable chemistry with Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and of course, Troy Franklin, who just so happened to be his number 1 at Oregon. And it's clear that he's the best option under center for the Broncos, so there was absolutely no reason for Sean Payton to take so long to announce him as the starter.
The bit of the jig is up, though, Coach. Like, it's like, we know he's the guy. Why not hand him the keys like Chicago did with Caleb?
Still playing.
What do you mean?
They have one more song.
What are you waiting for?
We discussed this We discussed this back in minicamp when we saw the Bears named Caleb their starter in the spring. And
no veteran. They didn't bring anybody in.
Yeah, and I understand that, but philosophically, we were going to be different.
I get you wanting to have a competition, not only for the locker room's sake, but also for your own confidence as a head coach. But when you have one guy that's head and shoulders above the guys he's competing against, you choose him. It's not that hard of a decision. You spent the 12th overall pick on this 24-year-old, and it takes you this long to be set on him being your guy. I mean, I can't imagine any team selecting a quarterback with the first 12 picks in the NFL draft, especially around the age of 23 or 24, that would just want to keep this first round quarterback on the bench. I mean, that's pure incompetence by any team that decides to do that. Not only does he not have the time to just waste away on your bench behind somebody who isn't better than him, but he's also going to help Denver compete for a wild card spot immediately. The Broncos finished 2023 with an 8-9 record with a 35-year-old Russell Wilson at quarterback and are in arguably the worst division in all of football, considering the fact that they have to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. There's no reason to think that Bo Nix can't lead the Denver Broncos to an improved record, especially with the Raiders getting worse and the Chargers being a huge wild card this year, considering how they completely altered their offense in terms of philosophy and in terms of personnel. To be fair though, the only QBs taken this year that were 100% week 1 starters before Nix was given the job were Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, so it makes sense that the 6th quarterback taken didn't have a secure job for a while. As I mentioned before, Drake May is most likely going to sit behind Jacoby Brissett for a few weeks. JJ McCarthy just completely tore his meniscus, putting him out for the year. Michael Penix was a complete waste of a draft pick, considering the Falcons had just signed a QB to a 4-year $180 million contract, so Nix not being named the starter after just 1 preseason game isn't all that insane. Plus, Peyton was probably a bit weary considering the Broncos' history of drafting first-round QBs. Before they drafted Bo Nix, Denver had 4 quarterbacks in the first round in the entire history of their franchise, and they've all sucked. And I know what you might be thinking.
But Mike, they drafted John Elway, and he's a Hall of Famer.
No, they didn't. John Elway might have only played for the Broncos during his career, but technically he wasn't drafted by them. He was drafted by the Baltimore Colts before laying the groundwork for Eli Manning a few decades later and straight up telling the Colts he wouldn't play for them, forcing a trade to Denver. His name was called as a Colt on draft night, and he was miserable about it, meaning that the best first-round QB to ever be selected by the Broncos is this guy. But even in Jay Cutler's case, he only played 3 years in Denver before having his best years in Chicago. If I haven't convinced you how bad the Broncos have been at drafting QBs yet, listen to this list of all-time busts that Colin Cowherd listed 6 years ago.
Quarterbacks drafted in the first round in the last 11 years to not start by the second year. By the start of year 2, Paxton Lynch, Manziel, Debo. We know how it turns out.
2 of the 3 guys he named were drafted by Denver. I completely understand why Sean Payton would be concerned. It's right there. And I do get that the last quarterback the Broncos took in the first round was Paxton Lynch, but you need to take a swing on Bo Nix. 2 games in and he's already better than Lynch ever was. I mean, the Chiefs' best quarterback they ever drafted was probably Mike Livingston, a one-time Pro Bowler, until 2017 when they took a chance on Patrick Mahomes, just 2 picks shy of when Denver drafted Nix. Bo Nix's teammates are already all the way behind him. Just listen to what Patrick Surtain had to say about him.
I just think he's very composed. He understands the offense very well. Obviously, his chemistry with Court, Tim, Josh, and everybody, I think it stands out.
Fans want Nix to start, players want Nix to start. It's clear that the front office wants Nix to start. Sean Payton is the only person in the world that wasn't fully sold on the fact that their first round pick is the future in Denver, and I think if anything that might be a little bit of a tactic. Through 2 preseason games, he's already shown that he can be a successful NFL QB. He just needs the opportunity. If he wasn't given this chance, then who knows where Denver could end up. The guy that's talented cannot sit behind someone like Jarrett Stidham or the legendary Zach Wilson. He needs to play. And now that he's being given the keys, football in Denver, Colorado will be completely transformed. Honestly, as a fan of football and as a fan of a team that has absolutely no hope this year, I'm very happy for Broncos fans. Yes, it doesn't really seem like you guys are Super Bowl contenders, but given that you guys were going into this season with absolutely no hope whatsoever, a colossal cap hit generated by cutting Russell Wilson before his contract extension even kicked in, this season could have been way, way worse. You could have just been watching a tanking football team, or pretty much the equivalent of what the Panthers were last year. And it seems like, at the very minimum, you guys have some hope. You're either watching a team trying to make a push for the wild card or the development of a promising QB. Either way, it seems like Bo Nix is a hit, and given how this season could have gone for you guys, that's a huge improvement over where you guys were about 4.5 months ago. So let me know in the comment section down below, Broncos fans, am I overhyping Bo Nix, or are you sold on him as a QB? Definitely going to be keeping tabs on him throughout the season, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.